All right, today we're going to be looking at linear functions and really how slope is found in linear functions. This should be a good review for us, but just a chance for us to look at this and make sure that we can figure out where all those things are. And so anyway, as we get started here, remember there are four types of slope. We have a slope that is going up from left to right. That would be a positive slope. So a positive slope would be going up from left to right. And again, that would be positive. Okay. A negative slope would be our next one. And a negative slope is going down from left to right. Our third type of slope is called zero slope. Remember, zero slope is a horizontal line. And then our last one is what we call an undefined slope. And an undefined slope, or what used to be called no slope, is a vertical line. And so that is undefined because the y value, the rise over the run, there is no run. So when the run is 0, then we have an undefined slope because we cannot have a 0 at the bottom of a fraction. So those are our four types of slope: positive, negative, 0, and undefined. Okay, as a reminder, in an equation, the m, the number that is attached to x, is the slope. So that m, that number there in front of x, is the slope. And then again, the b is our y-intercept. That's that point where that graph is going to touch the y-axis. If I'm finding slope in a table, what I need to do is I need to find the rise of the run. Remember, the rise is always going to be on the y side. So the rise and the run. And we're going to look at what the rise is. So I'm looking at how the graph changes from one row to the next. And in this case, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, it is going up 2 every time. The run is going 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That is going up 1 every time. So my slope is the rise of the run. So it's 2 over 1, or it simplifies to 2. All right, now when it comes to a graph, the first thing I want to do on the graph is I want to identify as my graph got a positive, a negative, a 0, or an undefined slope. In this case, our graph has a negative slope. It's going down from left to right. So when I go to make my triangle, after I identify my 2 points, I know that from my 2 points, I need to go down. So I'm going to identify 2 points on this graph, one right here and one right here. And those 2 points that I identify need to be on the corners of grid lines. They need to be at whole number or integer values. We don't want them at partials because we don't want to try to guess and assume what that would be. And then if my line is negative, my triangle needs to go down. That's going to remind me that I have a negative slope. So I'm going down 3 units and I'm going right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's 8 to the right. So my rise is negative 3, and my run is 8. So it's negative 3/8. So my slope, my m, is negative 3/8. All right, and then some key features of functions. Okay, there's a couple of things we want to keep in mind when we're looking at linear functions. Number one of those would be the y-intercept. Okay, that's something we always want to look for, is the y-intercept. Another key feature would be right up here, which is the x-intercept. It could also be called the 0 or the solution of that graph. And then again, another important thing would be the slope, the rise and the run, or in this case, the fall and the run. So the slope or the tilt of the line. Excuse my handwriting on that, the slope. Okay, so those are 3 key features of linear functions. And again, another thing that's important to keep in mind is that the domain of any regular mathematical linear function would be all real numbers, and then the range is the same. And remember, that can be represented a variety of different ways. We can use the block R, we can say all real numbers, or we could use negative infinity to positive infinity. All 3 of those represent all real numbers for domain and range. All right, I want you to take a second on this second graph and identify those things. So go ahead and hit pause on the video, and then I want you to identify those key features. Okay, so again, my 0 or my x-intercept would be here at 2, 0. My y-intercept would be here at 0, -3. Excuse me, 0, -3. And then my slope would be found from going from 0, -3 to 2, 0. That's a rise of 3 and a run of 2. So my m is 3 over 2. And then again, my domain and range. My domain would be all real numbers, which could be represented like this. And then range, again, would be all real numbers, and it could be that. So those are kind of the different ways you might see that represented. All right, let's look at the next page. All right, standard form, and it's hard to see because of this page, but standard form is ax plus by equals c. Okay, so that's standard form, and our job is to find the slope of an equation that's in standard form. And so what we want to do is to get an equation in standard form, and to find the slope, we need to convert it to slope-intercept. So what we want to do here is we want to write our equation, 2x plus 5y equals 10, and then to find the slope, we need to move x and divide by the coefficient of y. So I'm going to move the x. So now I have 5y equals a -2x plus 10, and then I need to divide by 5. And I'm going to divide everything in the equation by 5. So I'm ended up with y equals a -2/5 x plus 2. And if you notice, the slope is -2/5, which is the opposite of a, which is the 2, divided by the b, which is 5. So we can find slope by doing the opposite of a divided by b. All right. So I want you to take a second looking at the next equation, and I want you to determine the slope of that standard form equation, 5x minus 3y equals 15. Okay, so again, you could have done it one or two ways. You could have moved 5x to the other side by subtracting to get a -3y equals a -5x plus 15. Then you could have divided by -3. So that leaves you with y equals 5/3 x minus 5. And so our slope would be 5/3. Or again, we could have done the opposite of a. Well, a was 5, so the opposite of 5 is -5, divided by b, which in this case is a -3. And -5 divided by -3 is 5/3. So we can find slope either one of those ways, whichever one is easiest for you to do. You know, if I'm going to graph it, I definitely want to change the whole equation to slope-intercept. If I'm just looking for the slope, it might be easier to do the opposite of a divided by b. All right, and then moving on to our next part is point-slope form. That's the other form of equation that we might see. And so it says write the equation of the line that passes through the point 3, -6 and has a slope of 1/2. So if you remember, our formula, as it says up top, is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1, where y1, x1, and m are going to be replaced by numbers. So if I start, it says y minus, and then I have -6, and that equals m, which in this case is 1/2, in front of x minus 3. All right, what I need to do over here is I need on the left side to get rid of the parentheses. And to do that, we can add the opposite. So we would change this to a plus and this to a plus, which makes it y plus 6 equals 1/2 in front of x minus 3. And if I needed to change it to slope-intercept form, all I would do is I would multiply 1/2. I would distribute first, and then I would move the 6. So y plus 6 equals 1/2 x minus 3/2. All right, and then I would move the 6. So I would subtract 6 on both sides. So then y equals a 1/2 x minus, and then I would change that 6 to a proper fraction, or I would combine those together. So since they're both negative, I'm going to add them together. So that makes a negative 7/2. And so that would be my equation if I needed to change it to slope-intercept. So I'm going to distribute, and then I'm going to move the number that's attached to y, or that's added or subtracted from y, excuse me. All right, I want you to take a second, pause the video, and see if you can figure out how to do it when you have 2 points. Okay, if you have 2 points, remember we can find the slope by doing y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And so if I were going to do that, 10 minus 8 is 2. And then a negative 4 minus negative 6 is really a negative 4 plus 6, which is also 2. And so my slope is 1. All right, then I would go to write my equation, and I would use the first point and use the slope that I found. So I would say y minus 8 equals 1, and you wouldn't even have to put the 1 necessarily, but 1 in front of x, and then it would become plus 6 because it's the opposite of what we see in the point. So 8 became minus 8, negative 6 became plus 6. And again, you could drop the parentheses, and it could just be written as y minus 8 equals x plus 6. So that could be written either way there, and that would be accurate. And then again, to change it to slope-intercept, I would add 8 to both sides. So then y equals x plus 14 in slope-intercept form. All right, I hope that helps. Again, let your teacher know if you have any questions.